Security actuary is absolutely stabilizing the system and taking care of it. The key is there's $2.4 trillion in Social Security, which should be off budget. And no president of the United States should ever again say, because of some political fight in Washington, I may not be able to send you your check. That money is sitting there. That money is available. And the country ought to pay the debt it owes the people who put the money in.
Governor Romney, if I could follow up. Speaker Gingrich just said he's not prepared to raise taxes on the American people in the middle of a slow economy like this. That's what would happen if the payroll tax cut is not extended. Do you agree with him, and would you also support, when it comes down to it, an extension of the payroll tax cut?
I don't want to raise taxes on people in the middle of a recession.
So
of course
you're for
not.
it.
That's one of the reasons why we fought so hard to make sure the Bush tax cuts weren't taken away by President Obama. But look, this issue of deficits and spending is not about just dollars and cents. This is a moral issue. It's a moral imperative. We can't continue to pass on massive debts to the next generation. We can't continue to put at risk the greatest nation in the history of the earth because of the profligate spending that's going on in Washington, D.C.
But to clarify, you agree with President Obama the payroll tax cut should be extended?
I want to keep our taxes down. I don't want to raise any taxes anywhere. Let me tell you, I'm not looking to raise taxes. What I'm looking to do is to cut spending. And that's why this last week I put out a plan that dramatically cuts spending in Washington that gets us to a 20% cap and make sure that we have a balanced budget thereafter. And how do I do it? I have three major steps. Number one, cut programs. Get rid of programs we don't have to have, like Obamacare. Take a lot of programs that we have at the state level, number two, at the federal level, and send them back to the states where they can be better run with less fraud and abuse. And number three, finally bring some productivity and management expertise to the federal government. I would cut the workforce by 10%. And I want to say one more, and that is this. I want to make sure we link the compensation of our federal bureaucrats to that which exists in the private sector. People who are public servants shouldn't get more money than the taxpayers that they're serving.
Does any candidate on this stage disagree? Does any candidate disagree and oppose extension of the payroll tax cut?
Say that again.
Does any candidate disagree with the Speaker and Governor Romney and oppose the extension of the payroll tax cut?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You oppose it?
I do. I opposed it when it was first proposed because I knew that it would blow a hole of $111 billion in the Social Security Trust Fund. President Obama clearly did this for political reasons. That's why he did it. And so I had made that warning then because we actually have already run Social Security in the red. We aren't just about to, we already have. 6 years ahead of time. Now consider the context. We have baby boomers in their peak earning years. This is when money should be flooding into the Social Security Trust Fund. Instead, we're already in the red. When we talk this evening about how much trouble we're in with spending, we're in a tremendous amount of trouble with spending. Just consider, we pay a lot of taxes in this country. $2.2 trillion is what we send into Washington. The problem is we spent at the government level $3.7 trillion.
Well,
you started out tonight
out of time, Congresswoman. Rick?
Governor Huntsman, our federal government
lonely over here.
Our federal government still owns 500 million shares of GM stock. Guarantees trillions with a T dollars of mortgages. They are basically the lender doing 90% of all the mortgage origination right now. And you consider the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has purchased $2.62 trillion, again with a T, of Treasury securities, agency securities, and mortgage securities. If you were president, how would your administration and would your administration reverse these obligations?
I would clean up the balance sheet. And let me tell you what I worry about as much as anything else. We talk about failed leadership. We certainly have failed leadership. President Obama had 2 years to get this economy going and to move us toward an environment that speaks to job growth, and he's failed miserably. But along with that, we have a real trust crisis in this country. Between the American people and our institutions of power, Congress, the executive branch, Wall Street as well, there's no trust. We're running on empty. And when a democracy begins to run on empty because of government holdings and bailouts and being involved in ways that are absolutely inappropriate based on constitutional government and where we should be, that results in a diminution of trust by the American people. We've got to raise that trust. So let me just tell you what I think needs to be done in terms of bringing our economy up. We've heard about all these great tax plans. I think I'm the only one on the stage who's actually delivered a flat tax. And I did that as governor of my state. I put forward a proposal that I think is right for this country and getting it back on its feet. The Wall Street Journal has come out, the most respected editorial page economically, maybe in the entire world, has come out and endorsed my plan, said it's the very best of the bunch. And it very simply calls out, just as I did as governor. So I'm not sitting here talking about academic theory. I stand here as a practitioner. I've done it before. I want to phase out the loopholes and the deductions on the individual side, phase out corporate welfare and subsidies on the corporate side, and lower the rates, make us more competitive. That's the kind of work that is realistic. It can get done in Congress and fire the engines of growth that are so desperately needed to boost trust in this country.
Sharon Epperson.
I want to turn the attention to why we're here on this campus and what many students are very interested in, and that is the fact that, Congressman Paul, right now we are looking at student loan debt that is near $1 trillion. Americans owe more on student loans right now than credit cards, and the average debt for a college senior right now is over $25,000. It's obviously a very hot topic right here on this campus and with students across the country. Just listen to what they have to say.
Tuition rates have increased roughly 3 times that of inflation over the last 3 decades.
More students have to take out loans or forego college.
My generation is graduating with student debt levels at an unprecedented level.
So, Congressman Paul, you've already talked about the fact that you want to get rid of the Department of Education. You've said that you want to get rid of federal student loans. So how would you make college more accessible, more affordable for these students and students around the country?
Well, I think you proved that the policy of student loans is a total failure. I mean, $1 trillion of debt, and it's going to be dumped on the taxpayer. And what have they gotten? A poor education, and costs have skyrocketed because of inflation, and they don't have jobs. There's nothing more dramatically failing than that program. So, no, there's no authority in the Constitution for the federal government to be dealing with education. We should get rid of the loan programs. We should get rid of the Department of Education and give tax credits if you have to help people. But the inflation is the big problem. 3 times the rate that the government admits inflation is, and that is natural and normal. When governments inflate the currency, it goes in the areas that the government gets involved in. Housing, high prices go up. Stock market, skyrocketing prices. Medical care, skyrocketing. Education.
How do they pay for it? How do they now pay for college if they're not?
The way you pay for cell phones and computers. You have the marketplace there. There's competition. Quality goes up, the price goes down. Can you imagine what it would have been like if the Department of Homeland Security was in charge of finding one person or one company to make the cell phones? I mean, it would have been a total disaster. So when the government gets involved in the delivery of any service, whether it's education, medical care, or housing, they cause higher prices, lower quality, create bubbles, and they give us this mess that we're in. That's why we have to eventually we have to wise up and look at where the bubbles come from. It's from the Federal Reserve, and we should start by auditing the Fed, and then we should end the Fed.
Thank you, Congressman. Speaker Gingrich, Congressman Paul just talked about a bubble, and there are many that are concerned that unlike other types of debt, student loan debt does not have the same type of consumer protections. It cannot be wiped out in bankruptcy by law. There's really little way to refinance it. Are you worried about student loan debt becoming the next government bailout?
You know, this is a good place to talk about the scale of change we're about to live through. We're at the end of the welfare state era of dependency, debt, distortion, and dishonesty. The student loan program began when Lyndon Johnson announced it, I think, with a $15 million program. It's an absurdity. What does it do? It expands the ability of students to stay in college longer because they don't see the cost. It actually means they take fewer hours per semester on average. It takes longer for them to get to school. It allows them to tolerate tuitions going up absurdly. By 2014, there will be one administrator for every teacher on college campuses in the United States. Now, let me give you a contrast that's very startling. The College of the Ozarks is a work-study college. You cannot apply to it unless you need student aid, and they have no student aid. You have to work 20 hours a week during the year to pay tuition and books. You work 40 hours a week during the summer to pay for room and board. 92% of the students graduate owing no debt. The 8% who owe debt owe $5,000 because they bought a car. Now, that is a model so different, it will be culture shock for the students of America to learn. We actually expect them to go to class, study, get out quickly, charge as little as possible, and emerge debt-free by doing the right things for 4 years.
Governor Perry. Governor Perry, name the top programs that you would cut in terms of long-term deficit reduction. Include Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense spending in the order you see fit.
Well, every one of those, and by the way, that was the Department of Energy I was reaching for a while ago. So here's what we have to look at as Americans, and it's the entitlement programs that are eating up this huge amount of money that's out there. And it's also the spending, Congressman Paul. And those, when you look at Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and those unfunded liabilities, I think are over $115 trillion just in those three programs. Those are the places where you go where you have to make the really hard decisions in this country.
So what is your order? And you didn't mention defense spending.
Well, obviously, Social Security is one of those where we either can go to a blended type of a program where we blend price and wages and come up with a program and can save billions of dollars there. But the people who are on Social Security, they need to understand something today. It's going to be there for them. Those that are working their way towards Social Security, we've made a pledge to them that those individuals are going to have those dollars there for them. But the young people out there, who's going to stand up for the young people in this country, those that are at the workforce today, and stand up and say, we're going to transform this program so it's going to be there for you? Well, I will do that. I will stand up for the young people in this country and put a program into place that will be there for them.
Speaking of young people, quick answer. Do you agree with Congressman Paul that we should kill the federal student loan program?
I happen to think there are a substantial number of ways. As a matter of fact, I've called for a $10,000 graduate
But would you kill the federal student loan program?
I don't think the federal government should be in the business of paying for programs and building up huge debt out there. I think we need to look at how do you force these universities? How do you force these universities to be efficient? And one of the ways is that the governors who appoint the trustees, they step in and they basically say, listen, you are going to have graduation rates that are moving upwards. You're going to have tuition that is moving down. You have to have control over those boards of regents if that's how you do it, or the legislature have to have control. But the bottom line is we have to put powerful economic forces into place. And one of those is using our technology to be able to let our kids have the opportunity to get an education through long-distance learning, for instance.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take one more quick break. When we return, final questions to the candidates.
Our CNBC Republican presidential debate will be right back.
Welcome back to CNBC's Republican presidential debate.
Mr. Cain, let me ask you a question. Under a Republican governor, the state of California hired a company in China to build major portions of the new San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, created thousands of jobs in China, and California did that because it was cheaper. Is that smart purchasing by government in a global economy, or is there something wrong with that?
There's something wrong with that, which is why I have proposed a bold plan, 999, and allow me to explain how on the 999 that company would be more inclined to keep the business here. On the first 9, you take sales minus purchases, net exports, and capital. It levels the playing field between goods produced here in the United States and the rest of the world. It makes the United States much more competitive, and businesses won't be tempted to build overseas, send jobs overseas. The tax code is what sends jobs overseas. The tax code is what caused them to buy those articles from the Chinese. It starts